Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Actually, I should just say hello, everybody. Wherever you are in the world, welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa. And I have with me again the beautiful Rachel Vaughan from Australia. We've missed each other the last couple of shows, right? And it's so good to have you back, Rachel. How are you?
Lovely to be here, darling. I'm trying to keep warm. It's very cold in Australia, but it's lovely to be back. Basking in your warmth.
Well, I'm basking in yours, so that must be a mutually affectionate, beneficial warmth. Happy to be basking in yours as well, that's for sure. But wow, I was just saying to you off air as well. I mean, I've known you for how long now? Maybe two and a half
Oh,
years?
yeah, at least. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm just really in awe of the stuff you're doing. And I want to just say that to you because I think with your the ley line work you're doing, assisting people to understand their psychic gifts, because I think in these times, those psychic gifts from kids in the system have been so badly abused
Yes.
that anything psychic or anything out of your physical reality is now oftentimes deemed as evil or of the devil, right? And it's so wonderful to see how people like yourself who've had your own gifts exploited can actually share and show the beauty of the gifts that you have and work with them in such a constructive way. So I want to just say that to you. And I was just saying to you as well, I mean, you have certainly just become such an amazing blossomer that I've observed in the last couple of years as well. So I so see you in your power, and I so see you doing exactly what you meant to do and what you love doing. And it's awesome to see. So I want to just say that to you and just say congratulations. You're opening up so many pathways in Australia. And I know between you and so many others, there's Kerry Saint as well that used to be on the show with the adoption stuff. Australia is such a hot spot for such atrocities, and so few people know that. And that's why I think it's such an important journey for us to just get, because I think if we can get Australia cleaned up, it's going to change so much for the rest of the world as well, because Australia is rotten.
It
Sorry.
is. It is appalling here. But thank you so much. That's such a beautiful, beautiful thing to say. As I said to you off camera, talking about my childhood is definitely not my passion. My passion is psychic work and for helping other people find their soul purpose and open up psychically, because we have all these senses that can keep us safe if we just knew how to use them. And we've
Yeah.
been deliberately dumbed down with things like fluoride. We've got levels of fluoride in the water in Australia are very, very high in comparison to even the other countries that do it. And the Nazis were putting fluoride in the water in the concentration camps, and they weren't worried about their teeth. So, this is something that people just don't seem to really recognize. It dumbs people down. The little calcite crystals, quartz crystals in the pineal gland cannot
Yeah.
function. And that's our Wi-Fi. They can't function if they're calcified. And if the pineal gland gets calcified with fluoride. So yeah, so just those little things that I'm teaching people, that is my joy. That is my absolute joy. So yeah, you've seen me go from having to talk about my childhood so much. Now I'm talking about the stuff that I love. So yeah, you're going to see a different side, obviously, that's actually happy. So thank you, darling.
And what I was also saying, and I mean, I know you get it, that this is the gift of such a terrible time. I always like to see the gift in every experience. And I'm a soul alchemist, okay? And I know that's often misunderstood, but I know you get that as well, which basically works on the premise that energy can never ever be created or destroyed, only ever transferred or transformed. So all the pain and suffering that was endured as a child, and it was obviously stashed away in different parts of the body, which is why there would have been lots of ailments and emotional issues, mental health issues, possibly whatever at a time, until those caves of pain, so to speak, were unlocked and healed. And slowly but surely we start drawing it out and healing it one by one. And then the balance comes in. And then the understanding of who you truly are.
Yes.
As a spirit, as a soul. And before you came down into this journey, you would have sat with your creator, the divine God, and said, choose me, let me be that for you, because I know I'm going to get through that, and I'm going to come out on the other side and share with the world about these disgusting atrocities that happen there, that the only way that they can be healed is through by bringing them into the light.
Yeah,
So,
and I know there would have been other souls that probably would have said, I'll do it. And I know I would have said, no, let me do it. Because that's just who I am. And and at
definitely.
times I've definitely rude that sort of attitude. But, I know so many other people, you've obviously put yourself on the line in many ways to bring this information out. And I've got my trolls, I've got my abusers. You've got those of all the people you've interviewed. It's a different thing entirely. It's a bigger picture. So, I hope you realise that it is appreciated. And I think people who watch you need to realise that, because you've amassed a lot more.
I think together we're doing it, and I think that's the joy. And I was also saying to you how amazing it is that you guys are, it's like I see you making such a change just within the Constitution of Australia, bringing in new laws or changing certain laws or whatever it might be that you guys are all doing there. And that's why I say again, if we can clean up Australia, it's going to be like a release for so many other parts of the world, because it definitely is a stronghold and a hub for these evil atrocities. And so kudos to you for choosing that place and cleaning up that hellhole.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and obviously, South Africa's got some issues too. So you've done the
Oh
same.
boy. Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
No.
Australia's called the land down under because not just because it's situation. It's because it's been kept down. It's a euphemism for sexual organs. We've got the map of Tasmania. That's a euphemism for sexual organs, and Tasmania is a terrible place for child trafficking and abuse. The Wizard of Oz, Land of Oz, all of these MK Ultra terms are used to refer to Australia. It really is a hotbed. It's definitely run by Freemasons, or it was. I think things are crumbling for them at the moment. And I think that's part of, as we were discussing before, we've got these 4 years of truth that started in November of last year, astrologically. It's really interesting because it seems to me that there must be some pretty big stuff going on behind the scenes, because I've been offered this victim of crime compensation payment, which is a very unusual thing for somebody who speaks about the sort of stuff that I speak about. Now, I had so much medical evidence, so much other evidence, I mean, just reams of evidence, that I don't think they can sort of squash it down anymore. It's not possible. And that was
Right.
basically brought about because my brother Andrew was told by a major crime detective that they know in the major crime department in Adelaide that our father, was involved in the disappearance and murders of the Beaumont children. That's been admitted now. And as soon as I told that to my victim of crime compensation lawyer, within a week, within 10 days, I had this payment offer come through. Now I've been fighting for that for 5 years. So it 23rd of April to the 1st of May. 1st of May, Beltane was when the letter was written of offer.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah.
Wow. What do you think was the thing that got them to act so quickly on that?
I named the detective to the
Right.
lawyer, and I think he must have done some follow-up. And I think they must have realised, well, they're not going to be able to keep that quiet for too much longer. So and the excuse that was given, the reason why they haven't dug up the property where the Beaumont children are buried, one of my father's former properties at Stansbury on the York Peninsula, McIntyre Place, even though they've taken the street name down, or they had last time I looked, they can't dig it up because of the Mulligan inquiry, supposedly, according to this detective. Well, the Mulligan inquiry, the terms of reference were for state wards that went missing and died, not for children who were taken from a family. The Beaumont children were taken from a family. They weren't wards of state. So those terms of reference, that Mulligan inquiry suppression order, does not relate to the Beaumont children. And that proves that all of the state wards that myself, my brother, my sister have been saying we saw murdered by our father, their bodies being dismembered, that's why they won't dig up, because it's all part of that. They know that there's multiple bodies there, not just the Beaumont children. So, and as you know, I described to you the first time I'd ever spoken about it publicly, the little tiny skulls, about 50 of them that I couldn't count at the time. This is an estimation in a sinkhole there at that same property, 50 of them. The Guardian article, The Room of the Dead, proves that people have been making trophies of human body parts in my country for hundreds of years. So, you know, and now they're cleaning up the museum. The government's, you know, trying to shut down this part of the museum. So, you know, amazing. You expose something and then, oh, quick, we better hide that, better cover it up. Whereas before they left it all out and open because they like to show it off. They like to show off the power that they have. They like to show off that they can get away with it.
I mean, what would seem so completely grotesque to you and I, and out of the ordinary, seems so awesome for them. Get that trophy. Remember that. You know, it's a kick for them. And it's something so completely out of our normal realm of thinking that it's completely, yeah, you know. But I have no doubt, Rachel, that in time, those graves, call it graves for want of a better word, will get dug up.
Oh, yeah.
I think you've certainly had to point it out, and I think it has been pointed out, and I think there's enough a buzz, enough in Twitter about that for the next generation. Maybe not now, but the next generation, when there's actually good people in charge of the police force and stuff like that, that they will say, let us go and do the right and the decent thing. I've no doubt that that will occur. But you had to start it, right? It had to be you that pointed in that direction. And as we know, these things are so risky. I mean, we don't even have to talk about the types of risks. And we know, I mean, without going into anything, just guests of mine and how they've lost family members and been threatened and attacked and what have you over the past few years, just since I've been involved. So it's a hell of a risky business, right? To bring stuff like this to the fore.
Yeah, I've lost her over it. You know, she was murdered in 2009. So, you know, the dates between the 13th of June, her birthday, and the 18th of August when she was murdered in 2009, it's always a very difficult time because I know, you know, and that was supposedly a suicide. It wasn't a suicide. You don't strangle yourself to death sitting down with a sash cord. It just doesn't happen. So, you know, and that's something else that needs to be investigated. And she had made an appointment to speak to the Major Crime Department the day before she was found. And there's a lot of other stuff that went around it. Another woman got killed in a very similar way that was also known to me. The same car was parked outside her house when it happened. Yeah, it just, another person was killed at the same time, same vehicle. You know, it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. But, you know, whoever that person is, they'll be found out and that will be exposed.
Yes, the truth will definitely come out. The time will come where the truth will be exposed, and it's just the beginning now. I've no doubt about that. So, wow. I'm really happy though that you know, for this victim of crime payment, the compensation that you've received. Do you think that's going to be made available to more and more victims as time goes on? Is it going to be something that's becoming, I want to say law? I don't think they'll ever write that into the law, but at least make a opening, if you want, for people to be compensated.
I know from the Mulligan inquiry that I mentioned earlier that the people who spoke up, who had been wards of state, when they first did the inquiry in 2007, there was an offer of about $50,000 compensation maximum for the sort of horrific abuse that those children went through, now adults. Then it got put up to about 150K. So it has gone up a little, but that's such a tiny little amount of money. That doesn't, and basically it's how much therapy that person needs.
Right.
That's what they compensate them for, how much therapy they need. So it's quite backhanded, because then you've got to prove how messed up you are. And that's another form of traumatization. If you have somehow hauled yourself up out of that nightmare and made something of yourself, you get less.
And then you go back, yeah. Yes, and I agree, because, and also, again, we know that many of these psychologists and psychiatrists that are working with many of the victims are actually part of the system. So, you know, we've heard countless stories about that, and they just get hauled right back in again. Yeah, so, exactly. You know, who does one really trust in these situations? It's such a messy business right now. And as you say, you know, the money, I mean, that kind of money, how long does it last you? Maybe 6 months? I don't know what that is.
Exactly. It's not a huge amount. $150,000 is, it's not even really a dent on a house. Now, your average house in Australia is about $750K. So it's not even enough to get you a roof over your head. And a lot of people who've gone through that sort of severe trauma are on benefits, and, you know, they live hand to mouth, because it's, that sort of trauma is very hard to get past.
PTSD is, I think, probably one of the most underestimated traumas that I've come across and that I'm encountering. Because I think in so many instances, people in the past, I mean, to me, PTSD was something that someone who came out of war had, right? Yes. You look at those stories of guys coming out of the Second World War with severe, that to me is what PTSD is. But, you know, it's when we look at this hellhole in which people have been forced to partake, and the trauma that goes along with that, the PTSD just on that is so massive. And then you have guys that have had to go through that, then go to the military as well. It's plus have all sorts of things injected in them and tests done on them and trauma, chaos creation. I'm surprised that the average person that's been through that is still even able to talk, let alone laugh or have a conversation, because I think that the brain must be so severely affected.
That's part of the purpose, as I'm sure you're well aware.
Yeah.
People are constantly being tested. What will break the human spirit? What will destroy them? They're trying so hard to destroy the family, because that's what keeps the human spirit together. But
it's the family thing.
The human spirit's incredibly strong, incredibly strong. And if you recognize you're a soul that's eternal, having a human experience, you can't be broken. And that's why they take away our psychic ability.
Exactly.
They want to control that.
Exactly. And also just dumb us down and do whatever, because they've studied the human consciousness for eons. So they know our weaknesses, they know where we're vulnerable, they know where they can uproot us. And of course, with all this materialism, technology, money, I mean, there's three things in common. I mean, you speak to anyone who's been corrupted, and they will tell you that they found them or they got them on three main issues: money, power, and sex.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, because that's the lower three chakras of the body, right?
Yes,
it's the lower triad that keeps us stuck in the swamp. And until such time that we're going to get out of that materialism, lusty, addictive nature that us humans, and you see, they keep us stuck there. And the more they disconnect us from or I don't want to say they disconnect us, they give us tools with which we disconnect ourselves from our own psychic abilities, the more we then move into the lower triad of the chakra system. And we just keep this cycle of the cesspit of violence and aggression and sex and addictions and whatever that is, we keep that alive. And until we get out of that matrix and then move into the heart, because the minute we move into the heart, we're then operating from a different frequency. And that's where the bridge is, from the solar plexus, that money, power, greed, whatever, turn it into personal power, and then moving into the heart chakra, right? So that would be...
I mean, that's what Western society is all based on, isn't it? It's about keeping up with the Joneses, having the best car, having the best house, earning the most money, and being as young looking as possible. It's the absolute antithesis of what a real culture and what the ancient peoples knew. We should revere our wrinkles and be proud of them, because it proves our longevity. Each wrinkle has an experience and some knowledge that we've learned along the way. I do think we're going to get to a point where people are going to be embracing, I mean, I dye my hair, embracing our grays, embracing the fact that, the older the person, especially now with so much that's gone on with this stuff, that so many people won't be reaching those very old ages. We'll be appreciating those people again, and revering. And I don't believe in worshipping anybody, but there is a certain reverence for those who've come and learnt and are still able to survive.
I love honoring people who've done amazing things. I think that's so important. There are many incredible teachers that have walked this planet, that have taught us and that have shown us the way. And it's so important to be able to recognize, but that there's not only one way. Yes. Just because you live in the East and I live in the West doesn't mean I don't have water or you don't have water, right? Mm-hmm. We have different ideas about things, but it doesn't mean that we're not coming from the same essence, right? And that, we only have to get to China through one route. There's many routes to get there, and each one has its own beauty and each one has its own journey, and I think that's what we forget. We've forgotten that there are many ways. There's a beautiful Hindu saying that says there are many roads that reach to the top of the mountain, and the only one that is wrong is the one running around telling others that they are wrong.
Yeah, cool. Love
They're
it.
on the wrong path. And I think we've got to figure these things out for ourselves. Yes, do we get misled? And because the dark entities are so adept at splitting frequencies, inverting things, manipulating things, that the most beautiful teachings have been turned into something evil. And yes, I believe that the arcane has taken so much beauty and they schmooze it with all the right words and all the right wrapping and all the right, oh gosh, it's so sickening actually. And when you see through it, you know exactly what you're seeing, and you're just seeing this rotten, disgusting core, But that's up to us to discern. We have to discern who we're hearing when we pray, who we're hearing when we meditate.
Yeah.
Who are we? Your thoughts are sometimes we think our thoughts are our own, but if we've got some kind of a negative entity that many of us don't even know is around, connected or attached or a generational curse or whatever, to different varying degrees, you can have feelings and thoughts that aren't even your own. If you're an empath, if you walk into a room full of depressed people, you could suddenly start feeling suicidal because you're feeling the thoughts that they're thinking, and you start thinking them yourself. If you are not knowing who you are,
Yeah.
That's when that happens. Once you know your strength, once you know who you are, yes, we're going to sometimes fall in the mud and scrape our knee and sprain the ankle maybe. But you get up, you dust yourself down. You're still who you are. Even you might be walking with a little limp now. You just know you've got to walk a little bit slower, right? But you are still who you are, and you're still representing the same essence of you, not changing and not knowing who you are. When you don't know who you are and you think you've got to adhere to someone else's ideals of who you should be, that's when you get into trouble.
Yeah, there is so much division going on at the moment, which just, and it's understandable because we've come to such an incredible point in human history, and human evolution, that the only way the dark can try and put things off, or slow down what's going to be. I still like to use the term a golden age. I know that there's a lot of talk around Crowley and Alice Bailey, and them, this is
Yeah.
one of the main things that people troll me on now. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I've been calling out the Golden Dawn sect because my father was involved in it for friggin' years. I know. But this, because they would have co-opted that and tried to make it something evil, it doesn't mean
Yeah,
that we're not coming into a really amazing time. So maybe I won't call it the golden
exactly.
age, but no, fuck it, I'll call it the golden age. That's what
I
we're coming in.
agree.
And there are so many other ancient cultures that have prophesied this. Just because Alice Bailey and Alistair Crowley came along and tried to co-opt it doesn't mean they own it. It's still
That's
coming.
that's my point exactly. Is that they've taken everything and they've shat on it.
Yes,
So
on
now
purpose.
it's up to
By
us to
tradition.
realize why they shit on something they don't want us to have. So can I just take it and wash it under the tap and keep? Yes, I can actually. Once that crap's washed off it, and then you can see the wood for the trees, and then you get into the true essence of what the golden age really is about, and then you see how they try to distort it, and you are stupid enough to believe that. I understand that there's a lot of corruption that goes there. We've got to be careful, which is why I educate myself on that.
Yes,
Speak to a lot of
yes,
people about this stuff.
yes.
So I know how intertwined it is. But at the end of the day, I still come up saying, I talk to God. I don't give a shit who you think
Yeah,
you know. I
exactly.
know, there's no ways you're going to tell me any different because I know what I know. And you can sit there and judge me by your own standards because you haven't reached that point within yourself yet. But when you do, you will know what I mean. So, bye.
I think people need to understand that we shouldn't be fighting amongst each other. We should be banding together. And
Yes.
I don't want to hear any more about hopium either, because or copium, because I mean the human spirit stays together. It copes. It manages because it has
Yes.
hope. Hope is so
Exactly.
important, and that is the essence
Exactly.
of alchemy. And alchemy
Exactly.
is not evil. We have every right to create our future with our thoughts, with our intent, and this is something that I teach because
Our
I know
natural
how powerful
essence.
it is. Exactly.
And the thing
Exactly.
is, we're already doing it we're already doing it. It's not something we can start or stop. We are doing it. But what we haven't had control over is to realize that our thoughts and our emotions can change the direction of our lives.
Exactly.
They keep beating us down, telling us we're bad, telling us we're this, we use da da da, we're poor, poverty, da da da. That keeps us in submission, and that keeps us, as you say, out of our psychic strength. But
Yes.
when we move into our psychic strength and into that power of the truth of who we are, and power then is not something you beat someone on the head with. It's a humbling thing. It's kindness. It's humility. It's generosity. It's not having fear of going into places that angels fear to tread.
Mm. Yeah,
You
exactly.
do
It's
it, and
not
even
to.
if you know this might be my last moment on this earth, I'm okay, but I know I'm
Yeah,
protected. And should it be my last moment on earth, I will know that the time for me to leave the earth is now.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, precisely. And again, that's the power that we have, is recognizing, because we have a light soul that's altruistic, we will continue on whether we're in
Yes,
this flesh body or not. And the dark souls don't have that option. When they leave, they have to go somewhere dark, or they've got to try and piggyback on us or incarnate again.
yes,
And they want this planet to be as dark as possible to fulfill their
right.
needs.
Right.
But we far outnumber them, and we are definitely getting to a point, I feel, that they just do not, well, I personally think they don't have the balance of power anymore. I think we're
No,
already over that hill.
I do think we are, but I think it's like, when someone has to leave and they're mad that they have to leave, they're just going to break all your toys before they really have to go. Before they're leaving, they're just going to break as much as what they can. So it's like, I really think we're at that stage now where, yes, it is time. And I think it's obvious to those in the dark powers that this is the time. They've tried everything in their power to not make it the time. But I think more and more they're realizing, yes, you might get one or two or three that might think, no, we've still got fight in us. Let's do this, let's do that, and then rock the boat even more. But I think more and more, it's like definitely the time is coming, but there's still going to be more destruction. They're going to try and destroy us before they have to go. They're not going to say, okay, thank you so much for letting us use your planet as a war zone. We've really enjoyed siphoning your gold and your water and your loosh. They're not going to say that to us and be all polite.
Right. But we will be rebuilding.
Yes. I'm
Definitely at
so
a
excited for that. Yeah.
yeah. So this is, as my dear friend Jeanette Archer says, this is the healing and the education time, and that's what we're coming into. So that's why I love doing what I do. That's why
Yeah.
it's such a pleasure to work with people who are open enough and ready to find their soul purpose and to be that leader in their groups and in their sphere, to show, don't be afraid to step up and do what you came here to do. Don't worry about people having a go at you or telling you you'll never achieve anything. Get the thickest skin you can and just keep pushing forward. And that's the essence of alchemy. Again, it's switching off that the naysayers and ignoring that inner critic and just going for it.
Absolutely. Knowing who you are, knowing
Yeah.
what you're meant to be. And you're not going to have that unless you've done the inner work. You're
No.
always going to then be hauled off center by somebody who could be stronger than you, more senior than you, whatever. Or still, I mean, when I say prostituting ourselves, I mean feeling like we have to sell ourselves to the highest bidder because we haven't found that within ourselves here that makes us realize I'm the highest bidder, right? So you're still doing things, you're still taking external influence into your life. And I must say, as much as what Gen Z, that is crazy as hell, man. They're crazier than crazy Gen Z. But I must say, I like the way they think, this new generation, right? They're definitely more empowered in terms
Yes.
of manifestation, in
Yes.
terms of creation, being independent. They really are children of the Aquarian age. They're not going to be, they've got their own channel or their own business or doing their own thing. And yes, there's the other side of that when you see the most ridiculous things. And I mean, there are girls, I mean, there's OnlyFans. And look, maybe that is, I mean, I say maybe, I mean, I'm not going to judge that. I've never been in that position where I've even wanted to remove my clothes in front of a camera for whatever reasons. But I think maybe it's the collective feminine as well that has been sick of being suppressed and violated, etc. That's kind of coming up in the younger generation where they feel that having a body count of 300 at the age of 21 is empowerment. It's not, but maybe that's what the world needs to see and then realize, before we come back into balance again. So, there's a lot of stuff out there that needs to be cleaned and healed and balanced. And, and that's why I say, just going back to what I was saying earlier to you, is that especially with this victim of crime payment, the compensation that you've received, that's opening doors for people who have been in similar situations. And that, I think, is making, even if it is $50,000 or $150,000 to begin with, it's a start, right? And it could maybe help them start their business. It could maybe help them get their kid through school or whatever whatever it might be. It could help them write their book. It could give them just that courage they need to feel like they didn't suffer in vain. That somebody, more than anything, Rachel, it's about people hearing and believing.
It's the acknowledgement, which is why I went after it in the first place. So I knew it wasn't going to be a massive amount of money, but I wanted to finally get acknowledged because 18 years of writing letters and giving interviews and beating my head against
18
a
years, babe.
brick wall. Yes, 18 years. And back in 2006, when I was writing to police and putting in statutory declarations and being interviewed, I was abused by these people. They were horrible, horrible people. A handful of cops were nice, but the major crime department, not not this particular one who stood up and been honest, but some of the other ones were absolute creeps and evil. I mean, just truly evil. I mean, I was in the face of evil with many of them. And of course, I just kept contacting them and just kept hammering at them because that's in my nature. Um,
Of
so, you know, it
course.
took a long time, but this is what I want. This is what I wanted. I wanted finally someone to say, okay, yeah, all right. You've got these reams of evidence. You've got all this medical backup, you know, from all of these assessments and things, all this proof from procedures that I've had to have done because of the mess that they left behind. Finally, there's the acknowledgement. And so that, again, the timing of that when I'm now doing my passion and teaching, sharing my wisdom, to have that wrap up sets me free to do what I want to do, which again, like I said, it doesn't give me joy to speak about my childhood. It's very re-traumatizing to do it all the time, but I do it because it helps other survivors, and I'll still speak up when needed. But I want to do my passion, and that is, you know, the psychic work because it's empowering people.
Have you found, when you say now, obviously, I don't think anyone, let me just preface that by saying I don't think any child that's been through something to that what you've been as you've been through what you've been through would go back and be happy about that. My question is though, is that does it get better? And that's a direct question because I'm hoping and I believe, in my experience as well, when people start speaking and sharing, and especially when they get to the point that they can sit on an international public platform and talk about these atrocities, that to me is great healing. That to me is kind of getting the scabs on the wound, if that makes sense to you. So do you feel that every time you go back there, you got to dig up the old, and is it like digging into an old wound, or is it something that
Not
becomes
anymore.
less painful?
It does get less painful. So a lot of my healing was sharing my story
Right.
and what I went through and finding others who'd gone through the same thing. That was unbelievably powerful because I then knew, number one, I wasn't crazy. Number two, they taught me things that I hadn't even dug up yet. And then that allowed that to be freed. I got my health back. I was in agony. I had fibromyalgia, chronic pain conditions, really chronic pain. That dissipated. I learned how to build my body back up. It definitely gets easier, definitely. And it comes to the point where I certainly wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't had a traumatic childhood, because I wouldn't be speaking out about this sort of thing if I hadn't
Right.
had a traumatic childhood. I am not
Of
advocating for
course.
trauma, but unfortunately, and this is what I learn with every person that I read for that's a high frequency on a soul level, usually has some sort of horrific trauma in the background. I mean, what you were talking before about the OnlyFans, again, that is sad to me because 90% of people who go into the porn industry have been sexually abused as children.
Exactly.
So, and they are the embodiment of an obsession with the physical and power through sex. And that to me is
Yes.
terribly sad. And that's their choice. They can do whatever they want. But I wouldn't want that if I had a daughter. I wouldn't want that for my daughter. Because it's
Of
extremely
course.
dangerous. You get one obsessed person and you're done.
Right.
Um, oh, it breaks my heart for them. But again, it's a choice. People can do whatever they want. And, I was used in child pornography as a child. So that's the last thing I would ever want anybody to go into because it's soul destroying. But you can build yourself up. And again, as I've mentioned many times in interviews, every 10 years we replace every cell in the body. So there's not a single cell in my body that's left that anybody defiled as a child. I'm completely built, renewed. And I think I
Exactly.
like
I love what you've said there. I love the way you look at that, and it's so true. And I want to just go back there. There's not a single cell in your body that's been defiled.
Yeah.
And I think that's such an important thing to remember. You
And you were
are,
saying about Gen Z. I read for someone recently who's very young, in her teens. She already knew that. I didn't learn that until my late 30s. And it was just such a blessing to hear this beautiful young woman say these words. She knew. She knew. Just incredible. Yeah.
that is really beautiful. And I think that is such an important thing to remember, because it might sound like a pretty cliche, but let's think about that. Even if we haven't been a victim of SRA, it can be something else you've been through. It can be a past relationship, can be toxic situations, it can be fights, whatever. That's gone. There's not a single cell in your body that has been defiled. The only thing that keeps you there is the thoughts in your mind.
Yeah.
So when you choose the path of healing, and of course when you're unhealed, it's impossible for those thoughts not to be there. But when you choose the path of healing, God has an amazing, miraculous way of sending the right people to you at the right time, opening up pathways, synchronicities occur. Life just suddenly feels like a blessing instead of a curse.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that was pivotal to what we're describing today. There was a moment where I finally came to the realization at the height of my pain, oh my God, I chose my father to be my father on a soul level. Before I came in as a baby, I chose, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy. And that stopped the victim, that I was no longer the victim. I was the powerful soul who chose this experience. I always like to sort of temper this, because we've got the, who's the grey faction? Who's the scumbags that always say that, there are psychologists out there who say, oh, pedophilia is fine. Because the women who've been abused, or the people who've been abused, always say, oh, it helped me to get to be a better person. And that is not okay. These
No,
creeps
no.
can go get stuffed. But you can build yourself up from those experiences, if nothing else, just to put the middle finger up at those scumbags that have done that to you and thought that they could break you. Don't get broken. Don't let them break you.
And it's so true, that's where the alchemy lies. It's exactly what you said, Rachel, where you got to that moment of realizing I chose this experience, I chose my father, and I'm the all-powerful soul that knew I chose this because I would get through.
Mm.
And I think that's where, and as you said, that's when the victimhood ended. That's where the alchemy lies. That's when the lead becomes gold. In that moment, it's like 10 million kilograms get dissolved off you in a nanosecond.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And then I've heard other people say the same thing. My friends, that have gone through similar, but they're the ones that have a voice now and
Yeah,
are strong and capable and are helping others to cope and to get the healing that they need. That they're the greatest healers in the world, in my opinion.
exactly. The greatest healers are those that have been through the experiences
Yeah.
and have come back and are willing to share their healing, and have healed and willing to share their healing.
Yeah.
That's why I think, it's so important for people like yourself to speak up, gives others permission to speak up and to have their voices heard.
And you can see that across the board. That's, people who've gone to wars have survived and coped with their PTSD to the point that they can then help the others that have gone through the same. It's in every area. You just can't be a good. It's difficult to have that healing ability unless you have the empathy and compassion from the experience. And
Exactly.
again, is why, the wisdom of age. We shouldn't be revering the pretty young things as much as it's wonderful to be young and pretty, because it's the wizened old souls that are the ones that have got the stuff to teach us.
Exactly. It's awesome. I mean, when you're 16 and just boobs and bum, you know, or even 20, and things that are most important is your boobs and your bum. But as you say, you know, you grow old, and it's about how we've dealt with life, how we've dealt with the traumas, because that defines really at the end of the day who we are. Have we grown through our experiences, or have we shrunken through them? Have we learned to love, or have we learned to hate? You know, there's two paths here, and it's so easy to get caught up in the hate and the revenge and that cycle. It's easy to blame someone else because it keeps you not having to take responsibility for your actions, you know, and it goes way beyond that. So that's a story for another day. It's quite surface what I'm saying, yeah. But still, at the end of the day, each and every one of us are, in the place we're at, we're responsible for our well-being. And what are we going to do and continue to do, or choose to do, to ensure that we are happy and living a great life? I believe Earth is here to offer us, and I'm just super excited about the time. I mean, we're either very, very amazing souls to have come here at this time, or we're very freaking stupid, right? Like, what are you trying? I thought there's a party going down on Earth.
It's coming.
Meanwhile, it's something very different. Hey, I came here to party. What do you mean?
Well, I don't know if you read auras. I assume you probably can. But the babies coming in now are exceptional souls, and that's another.
Oh, they're
reason.
amazing. Yeah, they're like diamond. I see them, and I see the ones coming in my family, because there's quite a few recent entries into my family and mine. Oh, yeah, they're amazing. I mean, they're super, super cool, and it's amazing because there's just a whole different, energy, I think we can call it, that's arriving right now. And of course, the more, there's always that equal opposite until we've gone through that bottleneck, right? There's almost like a bottleneck we've got to move through now, and we go right or left. 4D positive, 4D negative, choice is yours.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because that bottleneck, I feel, is December, because that's when we come into the ley line's going to a permanent harmony time. A lot of rituals that have taken place, you know, like the ones I witnessed as a child and so many other survivors, would occur on the winter and summer solstice and the spring and autumn equinoxes. They are when the ley lines would harmonize. But apparently we're coming into permanent harmony time, where it's not just 4 dates of the year, it's permanent from December of this year, which is a pretty exceptional event.
Wow.
So we go into a time where they won't be able to use specific dates anymore. So if we're coming into that to me is like a gateway into the fifth dimension.
I love it. That's, as you say, and that's almost like when your chakras align, right? Because if we look at our chakras, which really is, our aura is an expression of what's happening in our chakras. In fact, I'm a believer that your 8th chakra doesn't sit up here. Your 8th chakra is your aura, because it's the expression of what the other chakras are saying. Right? So your aura would be your 8th chakra. And what's happening in your aura, whether it's full of holes and what, because remember, it's also your protection. But when your auras are out of line and they're all jig-jag pointed in different directions, there's no ways you can get alignment. The minute the chakras are aligned, you draw through your chakras and you move. You move. That's when you move. When the chakras are aligned and you move through the chakras. And guys, chakras are chakras, okay? Now, whether you call them chakras or chakras, it doesn't matter. I call them chakras. But the bottom line is whether you refer to them as that or energy centers in the body or whatever, same thing. Same thing, using different words in a different language maybe. But the bottom line is your energy centers in the body have to be clear. For you to get out of the matrix, your energy centers have to be clear and aligned, which means you have to do the personal work on yourself that needs to be done in order to get you to that point. Jesus is not coming to save you. Jesus has given you the tools and the information so that you can save yourself. And this is what saves you, because
Yes.
this is what resurrects you. Your consciousness has to be resurrected.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that then takes you, not necessarily physically, maybe, I don't know, but it aligns you to a lighter frequency where you're not stuck with the BS anymore and the drama. That's what I'm saying. The people you surround yourself with. You're all living on planet Earth, but you may as well be living in different little galaxies on Earth, actually, because you will then surround yourself, as you say, move through that place, all the ley lines harmonize. So those of us who've understood this will then all be hanging out together, chilling, not like expecting all sorts of nasty things to be going on. Like, we all understand what it took to get here, and now we're in the process of rebuilding, and all of us know what our purpose is, and we're interchanging and chatting and rebuilding together, and no one is competing with the other one.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And look, Jesus Christ was an example of what a gold soul frequency, a Christ consciousness frequency
Totally.
can achieve. I don't
Yes.
think at any point in his existence did he want people to just sit back and wait for him to come and fix things for them. So it's not about that. It's about, be inspired, aspire to be that soul. Go through do
Yes.
your work, help people.
What would Jesus do now?
Hopefully,
If you're in a situation, ask yourself, what would Jesus do now? And do the more Christ-like thing in that situation. That's how you elevate your consciousness.
and he was also an alchemist. He could
Total.
transmute materials. He was a prophet. It's not
Yes.
evil. It's perfectly healthy. And he said, follow in my footsteps, do as I do. So it's okay to
Right
be
on.
those things. And so,
Right
yes,
on.
there's some dark elements that have tried to drum it into everybody that they have to only go through a priest and they can only go through this person or that person to have their connection with God. And that is just as wrong as anything could possibly be. We all have a right to
Fully
have that.
agree. Fully agree. Fully agree. Rachel, it's always such a fabulous time talking to you, and I look forward to the next time. So I want to just say thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you for joining me today and sharing your awesome vibes with us here on ARA. And I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks again. And again, I mean, I just want to say thank you. You know, I'm not an Australian, but I'm a human being. For me, it doesn't matter what nationality we are. We're all doing the same thing. For what you've done for the victims in Australia. I know there's a couple of you, there's a handful of you people in Australia doing amazing things. And you guiding a lot of awakening souls right now. And we know when you first wake up and you see this nightmare that's going on, and it's not a nightmare, it's actually the truth. It's a very scary place to be. And so, yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for opening up the compensation for the victims, because I do believe that's what's going to happen. And just, just having the courage to speak, and for 18 years, never giving up and fighting for these kids that were nameless, faceless, graveless, who will now also find their peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's such an amazing way to honor others when you fight the fight that you have, and that's very truly brave. So
And yeah,
thank you.
thank you very much, darling. And for those who are listening, it doesn't have to take 18 years. And I don't think it's going to be like that for too much longer. I think we're going to be able to get this sort of thing sorted out pretty quickly. So
No, I
thank you very
agree. I agree. Thanks to folk like you. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us here on ARA. Again, I always love chatting to Rachel. We look forward to it for again. I'm swallowing my tongue. I was accused of being drunk the other day. Can you believe someone told me on the show that I'm drunk? I mean, I was like, am I slurring? I
And
had problems with my eyes. My eyes periodically give me problems. So there are times where I look at myself and I go, whoa, girl, you're not looking good. And they're I either look very tired or I just don't look right. But I'm not drunk, I promise. I hardly even drink.
not, obviously not, darling.
This is part of the shit we got to put up with on these channels,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah,
You got to
that's
have a
fine.
thick skin,
Yeah,
like a
okay.
rhino.
And learn to laugh and learn to laugh because
Exactly. I sit and I was like, who even says that to someone, right?
yeah, exactly.
Well, apparently, we have people in the world that do say that. Yeah, no, anyway, we have fun with it, though. We do have fun. I must say, sometimes it stings a bit, but I get over it quickly. Okay, everybody, God bless you all, and thank you so, so much for joining us. And I look forward to having Rachel back again in a couple of weeks. God bless. See you soon. Jerry vibes. Yes.